Welcome to 3DA's walkthrough of the Zebulon Disc Golf Course in Zebulon, North Carolina. The genesis of this walkthrough is to help the amateur players prepare for the 39th Annual Dogwood Crosstown Classic, held in the first weekend of April 2022. I've reached out to 18 different local players, ranging in all different types of divisions, to get their input on discs, plastics, shot types, and lines. I want to give a huge thank you to all of these players who helped. Your quick and thoughtful replies really helped with the production of this video, and I'm truly grateful. Be sure to check out their suggestions in the lower right side of the screen on each of the holes. Now let's get to hole 1. Hole 1 at Zeb may be the toughest starting hole in the capital area. A 380-foot par 3, the common mistake is going to be early on the right, where your angle to the pin will be severely pinched. Big forehands will see the most chances for 2. I'm not much on gambling at the first hole of the tournament, so I'm playing for 3 with the backhand mid up the middle, staying aware that I need to clear the OB creek. As you will see from the stats, getting the 3 on this hole will probably gain you strokes, and most importantly, ease the pressure at the beginning of the round. Similar to hole 1, hole 2 is another hole where forehands may be the most optimal play, but backhands can be effective as well. At 292 feet, this par 3 starts with a Mando on the right, keeping players from throwing over the sidewalk. This hole has all kinds of hazards, with the Mando, OB creek, OB sidewalk right, and kicking left might as well be a hazard as well. Hit the gap, clear the wide creek, and you'll feel good about a 2 on this hole. Hole 3 is a 276-foot par 3 with an OB creek and an OB playground long and right. Most players will go with a stable mid-range or putter, hoping to finish by the V tree near the basket to get a look at birdie. Out of all the holes at Zebulon, hole 3 feels the most like a must-get, as the distance is manageable, the initial gap is not challenging, and the slope behind the basket allows you to stay aggressive on your putt if you land short on the drive. Hole 4 takes you out of the wooded area and into the open. Off of the tee, players will be looking to land at or beyond the first light pole. 2 common mistakes off the tee are fading out left into the tree line, and alternatively, many players errantly go out of bounds into the baseball field when wind reads are not made correctly. 581 feet is manageable distance-wise, but placing your disc correctly on the first shot makes the second shot way easier. Be sure to take note pre-round at where the opening to the basket is, as it can be hard to see from a distance. Birdie feels great and par feels good on this par 4. Hole 5 is a 290-foot par 3 off of a slightly elevated tee pad. Be sure as you walk from hole 4's basket to hole 5's tee pad that you get your eyes on the basket and the best opening to reach it, as it can be tricky to find from the tee. Ideally, you want to penetrate the tree line to give yourself the easiest look at 2, but getting to the small hill can be enough to get yourself an edge of the circle look. Beware of the casual water shown in the hole preview, as it does collect here after a rain. Hole 6 is a 305-foot par 3 and is one of the more challenging holes on the track. There are multiple lines that can be taken off of the tee, and I've seen many players use the gap to the left of the first tree, throwing either a force over flex with an overstable disc or hyzer flipping something through the same gap. Whichever gap you choose, staying clean off the tee is of the utmost importance, no matter the distance, as huge kicks both left and right are in play. This is another hole where taking a 3 is going to feel pretty good. Hole 7 is a 280-foot par 3 with a Mando that is a moderate distance from the tee pad. Both forehands and turnover backhands for the righty are effective shots. An OB creek lines the entire left side of the hole, and don't be surprised if you or a couple of your card mates end up in it. If going with the backhand turnover, the angle out of the hand is so important. Not committing to the anhyzer angle will leave you fading left across the creek, and overcommitting can end up with a cut roll into the water. There are some pesky late trees that can provide a helping hand to putting your disc into the water. Do your best to avoid the penalty strokes on this hole, as it can end up as a birdie to a bogey real quick. Hole 8 provides another tough challenge as you begin to wrap up the front 9. Players with big distance love the challenge of trying to sneak the 2 on this hole, but at 420 feet and in the woods, hole 8 will play as a tweener for sure. Another hole where it may be smart to disc down, land in the fairway to give yourself a stress-free par, while others, who are more aggressive, have to scramble their way to a bogey or even worse. Stats show that a 3 is going to be on the correct side of the scoring average. Finally, wrapping up the front 9 is a 295-foot par 3. The hole veers gradually from right to left, and there's a sneaky tree that you cannot see off the tee pad. The common mistake is to throw a disc that's just too overstable and finds this tree. Gradual fade is what you need. Hole 9 is another hole at Zeb that hitting the initial gap is the number one objective. Anything short of the gap is almost guaranteeing a bogey or worse. Hole 10 is the second par 4 at Zebulon, coming in at 620 feet. Seeing the length, many golfers will grab their favorite distance driver. The mistake with this can be fading left in the air or skipping on the ground into the left side tree line, and this mistake will almost guarantee a par at best. Alternatively, going with a neutral mid-range, using the manhole as your aiming point, this will put you in a great position to approach the green, even if it's a slightly longer approach. This approach shot to the green will be downhill, so be sure to watch your height and stability. Avoid the pipeline and get yourself a look at birdie. Also, big thanks to Philip Bartholomew for providing us footage on how exactly to play hole 10. Hole 11 is a 240-foot par 3 that requires the player to hit a gap that's roughly 100 to 120 feet off the tee pad. Although measuring in at only 240 feet, the initial elevation change adds 20 to 30 feet more of required distance. Getting the nose angle of the disc on the first shot is imperative, and if you want to score on this hole, hitting the gap is a must. Anything short of the gap will require a great shot to card the par. Hole 12 is a 275-foot par 3 that bends left to right. The forehand or turnover backhand for the righty is in play. In discussing this hole with Schwebe, he made a great point that this hole is actually straighter than a lot of people think. Using a turnover shot with a lot of anhyzer builds risk, where instead a slightly straighter shot with less turn may not get you pin high, but instead within 30 feet on the short side of the basket for a birdie putt. Hole 13 is an exit from the woods. At 350 feet, this par 3 is slightly uphill. It should be noted that OB is the sidewalk and not the fence. 9 out of 10 times that I've played this course, I was faced with a headwind on the tee pad. As you get back into the open, be sure to check and recheck the wind. Choosing the wrong disc into a headwind brings the OB strokes into play. Go overstable and use the space out to the right so that you don't get caught up in the tree line left. Hole 14 is a 320-foot par 3 with literal acres of space to the right. Evan Smith provided some excellent guidance on this hole in our conversation, saying that he prefers the wide hyzer. He also commented that on the tee pad, he finds an aiming point that's high and well right of the basket when throwing the shot, because the only real trouble is missing your line left, fading into the left side tree line, and there are not many gaps out of it. Hole 15 is a 380-foot par 3 that really feels like the first time you can really put a move on the disc. Similar to hole 14, there is ample space to miss on the right that will not bring in much penalty, but missing left will. As usual, be sure to check the wind, as tailwinds and right to lefts will increase your chances of ending up in the left side tree line. Avoid this at all costs. Hole 16 is a 375-foot par 3 that plays in the opposite direction of hole 15. As you are approaching the entryway to the basket area of hole 15, be sure to get a check of the wind, as you won't be able to get a good read from the tee pad on 16. Ideally, hitting the first gap shouldn't be a big issue, but you'll need some power to reach the basket on your drive as the shot is slightly uphill. You always want to be as close as you can be to any basket when putting, but hole 16's basket especially, as it is unprotected from the wind. Hole 17 is a 480-foot par 4 that big arms will get big eyes. For top throwers, eagle can be accessible. For everyone else, a birdie feels like a must, and a par feels like a bogey. My personal play is to throw a hyzer out to the right of the middle trees, landing to the left of the sidewalk. The mistakes on this hole are getting caught up in the middle trees, and also missing left and ending up in the tree line towards the 16's tee pad. And finally, hole 18 is a 240-foot par 3, whose basket is perched up on the side of a slope. Many players will try to throw something overstable that skips up the hill, but personally, I think that the best play is a putter that will finish just at the base of the slope. Common mistakes on this hole are early releases that bring the left side tree line into play.